Want to know the best way to give a last-minute gift without stressing about shipping, wrapping, or getting just the right thing? Gift a tree. With one tree planted, you can give a donation to plant 1, 10, or hundreds of trees on behalf of someone you love. This is a seriously sustainable gift that will last a lifetime. And the best part? You'll get one free tree and an awesome e-card to send as a gift. Visit onetreeplanted.org and enter code HOLIDAYS at checkout for your free tree. Then sit back and relax. We'll do all the planting.
1, 2, 3, 4.
For everyone's safety, Vermont requires a 7-day home quarantine with a negative COVID-19 test, or 14 days with no test to visit this winter.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
We're also recommending you take the time to do some extra squats, lunges, wall sits, or high knees.
24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
With reduced lift and lodge capacity, you're going to have a lot more time to spend on the slopes. So take the time to get your legs ready.
38, 39, 40.
Vermont in winter. It's worth the wait.
1, 2, 3.
This winter, plan your trip. Don't trip up your plans. Talk to your favorite inn or resort about smart travel suggestions and reservation policies. For full COVID-19 travel guidance, visit vermontvacation.com.
16, 17.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. What's going on, everybody? This is Cigars with Mac. And today I want to talk about the differences in generations. I don't know if you guys, if there's a bit of a disturbance in the background. It's actually my neighbors mowing their yard. But anyway, we're going to fight through that. So, the differences in the background. I was inspired to do this because I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about Generation Z. And basically Generation Z are the kids born from like 1995 until like, I want to say the early 2000s, I believe. So anyway, this is something I kind of like talking about. Different generations and you actually can see the differences in the way we do things, from the we're gonna start with the baby boomers. The baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials, which is what I am, a millennial. I was born in 1986. So anyway, differences in the generation. What you'll find is that most millennials' parents they weren't teenage moms, they're baby boomers like mine. And with the baby boomers, in my opinion, I feel that really was the best generation that had the best opportunities to optimize, and some took advantage of it, some didn't, but for the most part, that was the best generation that had a good run. And there's also the generation that's sucking the hell out of our economy. They're not retiring, they didn't save up money, they're just really not prepared. And that's really a shame because this generation here, they to me had it the best. And I'm gonna tell you why. The baby boomers, I would hear like my mother talk about, when she was a kid. She's a baby boomer. And she could even, during her lunch break in school, they could go home and eat lunch and come back to school, And she said every day her mother, somebody was always at home. 2, it was damn near a cooked meal every day. 3, to buy real estate back then was very, very affordable. Even though the wage probably aligned with, the inflation during that time, but it was a lot easier to get things. It was a lot easier to come up. It was a lot easier. And that didn't matter, and in my opinion, for what I'm saying, it didn't matter whether you was black, white, didn't matter. And I say that because at the end of the day, those guys had it damn good. During the baby boomer era, when they reached probably, high school age, about to get out of high school, they were part of that generation where having a degree wasn't like the norm for the most part. They could still kind of get away with just having a high school diploma or GED and getting a good job. They could actually get away with that. They could get away with, living free, being themselves, and it wasn't a big deal, And the way I see it as, I feel like a lot of baby boomers didn't really maximize on those opportunities that were put before them. And now a lot of them are kind of pretty much playing catch up, And I say that because they really should be retiring by now. But unfortunately, a lot of them, they can't retire, And the reason why they can't retire is because most of them, for the most part, were able to go back home. If they fucked up in life, they could always go back home. I mean, that's kind of how it is now. But people now, at least down south, that's not really as common as you would think it would be, And with the baby boomers, they really got to, in my opinion, the majority, because there were some who had to grow up fast, but they really got to really enjoy their childhood. They got to, like I said, they didn't have to grow up as fast as we do nowadays, as we did, especially the millennials. They call us, and they call the Generation X the latchkey kids. And I'm going to get to that a little later on. And we were the latchkey kids because for the most part, our parents, those parents of the Generation X, they had to work, man. That's just what it was. They had to work, And that's where you got away from the 2-parent household. With the Gen Xers, some of their parents may not be baby boomers. It may be for the most part, but it may not be. I don't believe their parents are really. I take it back. Their parents will be baby boomers. Yes, they would. They will be baby boomers. If not baby boomers, a little bit before the boom era. So the average baby boomer is probably like around 40 to about 55, or early 50s, and so their parents were pre-baby boom. And and if their parents were, and if they are the parents of baby boomers, their parents probably were either very young or teenage parents. And that's just mathematically. I mean, that's just the way you got to look at it. So anyway, the baby boomers, they had a lot of opportunities, man. A lot of them. Baby boomers. I mean, and I'm not trying to talk bad about them. Don't get me wrong, because I don't have anything against baby boomers, but just from my knowledge, and my own research, they squandered a lot of opportunities. A lot of opportunities, And now they're trying to get it back. But unfortunately, age wise, it just ain't going to happen. I mean, that's just what it is, I've discovered something. If you haven't really got a good run going, I'm talking about a really good run going and really saving your money by the age of 50, and this is this day and time because the statistics say that millennials will retire at 70 in their 70s. So if you haven't really got that good, as far as a baby boomer, if you haven't really got that good run, a good 20-year run between 35 and to 55, I mean, you really might as well hang it up. You might as well hang it up. Because a lot of times they try to compete with the young people my age, and they really can't keep up. I mean, they can for a little bit, but when it comes down to longevity, I mean, it's just mathematically impossible. It's not going. It don't work like that, And especially for a man, men. The good thing about men is that we can get knocked down and start over again. But the female species, it doesn't work like that. A woman got to pretty much get married to secure their future. Yeah, they can be CEOs of companies and all that stuff there, but for the most part, women are creatures of comfort. Women like security, because if you do find a woman that's successful and she has a lot of money, well, when she gets older, who's going to be there to help take care of her? Yeah, women do outlive men statistically, but at the end of the day, human beings are not meant to be solitude creatures like that. We're not designed that way. And so anyway, with the baby boom generation, they're still in the workforce, believe it or not, but they're slowly dwindling and phasing out. And a lot of them are phasing out involuntarily. They're either being forced or they're dying, or that's just the way the cookie crumbles with the baby boom generation. So I just feel that, and even back then, you could do a lot more with money. You could do a lot more with money. You could do a hell of a lot more then than you can do now. Opportunities for them were, amazing. And not saying the opportunities are not amazing now. So I'm not making any excuses. But back then, oh man. They had it real good, man. They had it damn good. And the thing about the baby boom generation is they really didn't, how should I put it? I feel like a lot of them had inherited assets from their parents. And why do I say that? I say that because I've worked with people who parents pretty much passed down real estate, different assets, because the pre-boom, they knew how to save money very well. They owned land and things like that, and they passed it down to their children who were more likely baby boomers or Gen Xers. because back then people were having kids in their 40s and 50s. That was not common. That was very common back then. A woman to have a kid at 39, 40, that wasn't like, oh, this is unique. No, that's normal back in the day. Nowadays that's a rarity, but it still happens. So I talk about the baby boom generation. That's for the most part some of my take on it. I don't want to absorb this entire podcast talk about baby boomers, but I wanted to shed some light on that. Now, when it comes down to the Gen Xers might be early 50s, definitely 40 in the 40s. So maybe from 40 to about 52. The Gen Xers were the start of the latchkey kids. They were the start of the latchkey kids because for the most part, their parents, had careers, their parents, and the thing about that is that they're kind of intertwined with the welfare state where the father was forced out of the home, especially in the black community. So a lot of these parents had to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet, so they can take care of their kids, So what you had back in those days, and also that was kind of the start of the quote unquote enforcement of child support, And so Gen X's were like, the original latchkey kids. And that generation there, for the most part, they started the thinking outside of the box, because, most baby boomers, if you grew up in a Christian household in the South, it was just normal to go to church. That was a norm, Well, the Gen Xers challenged that. Many people believe they don't, but I think I see what they did. I see what they did. A lot of Gen Xers, when I was in the military, I was around a lot of Gen Xers, and they thought differently. They would not go along to get along. They questioned things. Believe it or not, they started that. And with the Gen Xers, because they were latchkey kids, they had to pretty much fend for self. That's why you have some guys that came up back in the day. They were kind of the. I don't want to completely put teen pregnancy on them, but there was a lot of teen pregnancy. There was a lot of that going on, especially in the black community, But other communities also. But the black community was just really magnified. And with the Gen Xers, they pretty much didn't get the privilege of getting wealth passed down. They pretty much, during that time, there was a real heavy college, enrollment. During Gen X's, they kind of stopped the trades in the high schools. Because back in the day, you could get a trade in high. You could get a trade in high school. You could come out pretty much a journeyman plumber, or at least an apprentice for the most part, and get your journeyman license within 2 to 3 years. They had that stuff back then. It was real heavy on the East Coast. Cause I've known people from the East Coast, and they told me how they was in this program, that program. It was real heavy back then. But moving towards the 80s and of course 90s, when the Gen Xers were of age, 18, they bought into the college real heavy, And I feel like it really didn't benefit them as much because now you have a heavy inflation of degrees out there, And as we know now, degrees depending on what type of degree you have will really depend on how should I put it? I don't want to say degrees are null and void, but you really got to be strategic nowadays with that with education. You got to be very strategic with that because you got to remember you're absorbing a debt now. And it's a good debt if you win on it because you can still win, believe it or not. But with the Gen Xers, man, they pretty much was left to themselves, their own devices, kind of like the millennials. I'm gonna get to them us in a little bit. But with the Gen Xers, man, they was a little radical. I mean, they just were. They were a little radical, man. And you would think that okay, this happened, civil rights, women's rights. You would think that, but a lot of times, whenever you have certain movements, from me noticing it, it takes sometimes it could take a movement can be started, but it may take another 10 years for it to really be in effect, for you to really see the benefits of it. And like I said before, this is nothing statistical. This is just my opinion and my observance of the world around me. But I looked at when I learned about like the generational titles and like baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Y, and all that, you actually can see the differences as far as behavior. You can see how they work financially. You can really see the difference. You really can. And the thing about the Gen Xer, I don't want to say they don't care about retirement, but they're not really, in my opinion, they're not really as security as far as job security focused like the baby boomers are. I'll put it that way. I'll say it like that. Now, lastly, let me talk about the millennials. See, the millennials, what we separate at is that we too were latchkey kids. And we experienced a lot of divorce. A lot of us seen our parents married 2 and 3 times. That was the norm for us. A lot of us didn't get to, go to one elementary, then go to one junior high, and then one high school. Some did, but I know me personally, I didn't have that luxury because I moved a lot. There really wasn't a lot of security, what I'm trying to provide for my family. And being a millennial, we understand, in my humble opinion, layoffs. We understand that we're going to have at least 10, 15 jobs during our career. That's normal. We're not even trying to be at no job for no 20, 30 years because we already know the chances of that happening is slim to none. And that's just the way it is. Millennials, we've gone through 2 recessions. The thing about millennials are we're not as chancy as the Gen Xers are. We play it smart. Because as a millennial, we know and understand, hey, we don't want to go through the housing bubble and lose value. Nah, we're not going to deal with that. And most millennials get married a little older. Most millennials like, hey, I want to have my job, have my career, have my savings in place. Then I'll decide to get married. Because I seen my parents, not me personally, but their thinking is I see my parents either stay married and be miserable or be married multiple times. So they're like, hey, before I do that, I'm not marrying anybody until I feel that I'm where I need to be. We too were latchkey kids. I can remember being in 3rd grade and asking my mom, could I stay home? And it was no big deal. She wasn't calling me and checking up on me. She knew that I was going to be responsible and not blow the damn house up. Well, there's no way in the hell I would leave my kids at home nowadays. And I got cameras all in my house. I got cameras, but it's just a different time nowadays because you got people out here that can actually hack into your system, and it's just crazy now. But back to the millennials. Millennials, we are not as, like I said, we don't really take chances. We are more of the calculated risk takers. In the words of Robert Smith, a thoughtful risk. Thoughtful, a thought out, a planned out risk that's smart, That's how the millennial, from my point of view, for the most part, thinks. And of course, it all depends on where you're from in the United States, in North America. That really plays a big part in it. You know, as millennials, for the most part, we're more focused on like certifications, having side hustles, always keeping money coming in because we've seen it to where we didn't have money. I've been homeless a couple of times. So I understand, like, okay, here's what I have to do to not be in that situation again. That's how millennials thinking, because for the most part, those millennials that are wealthy, I would have to say a good majority of them are first generation millionaires and first generation wealth creators, And with the millennial generation, I know when I joined the military, it was, in my basic training, I know I had to be the youngest guy in there. I would say 50-50 of my class was Gen Xers. They had to start over because it was after 9/11. It was in 2004, but it was when the war was really hot and heavy, and the military was stability for them. For me, it was a stepping stone in life. It was a stepping stone because I knew I had no intentions of retiring. I had no intentions of wanting to retire out of the military. There was no way I could do that for 20 plus years. It wasn't going to happen, especially as an enlisted man. There's no way. My mouth was way too sharp. My mouth was way too sharp. And I don't like people telling me what to do, especially when they know that I know what to do. But those Gen Xers, man, and a few of the baby boomers were actually retiring by the time I got in. That they kind of had a direction of they're going to retire from this. And mind you, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Military is a good stepping stone for any young person. And it's always a good plan B if things get hard for you in life, or if you drop out of college or anything like that. I enlisted at 17. My mom had to sign my papers for me to go. So, for me, it was a way out, but it was a way that I knew if I could do a couple years in there and get those valuable life lessons, then I could conquer the civilian world. But they were, they was always trying to, talk about retirement and, all that stuff there. But that just wasn't my thing, man. There was no way in the world I could do 20 years in the Army, especially. But the thing I like about the Army was it taught me to tap into those survival skills. It taught me to really, understand that I'm really stronger than I think I am. It's just that sometimes you got to be put in a predicament. And once you're in that predicament, you really see who you are. And for me personally, those skills I actually use to this day in my personal life and in the corporate environment, and that's what, the military taught me. But I knew within that there was no way I was going to do 20 years in the military. That's not going to happen. Not for me anyway. I mean, I spent 75% of my career in combat, So I didn't get to enjoy that quote unquote military life. I didn't get that privilege. It just didn't happen like that for me. It's just the time that I joined. The war was hot and heavy, and my job I had was a high demand job. So, and I thought I picked a job that I would be, chilling. No, that's not how it worked. My job was a high demand job because in the military, logistics and supplies is very important. And like I said, I'm glad it worked out like it did, But as a millennial back then, and of course I didn't understand these things about the different generations, but looking back at it now, the military taught me to always, be sharp, and understand that life will throw you curveballs. And the key to the curveballs is understand they're gonna come, but just know that a couple of them curveballs, you're gonna dodge a few of them. You're gonna dodge a few of them, and know that you dodge. You be grateful that hey, you dodged this, but understand something else may come, and it's not a shock to me if it comes. That's like right now during the pandemic. This doesn't shock me at all. I'm not shocked by this. Because I was prepared for this stuff 15 years ago. But the military for a millennial, I don't even know if some of the guys I went through with, I don't even know if these guys, most of the guys I went through with, everybody got out. But during the baby boom generation, they for the most part, a lot of them guys retired from the military, man. That was the key, And even for some Gen Xers, they retired. But for millennials, most of us got the fuck out. Especially in the Army, I've seen some people I went to school with who in the military, but one person, she's in the Air Force, and I'm like, damn, she's still in, but she's an officer now. And that's for me, that's probably the best route to go, because as far as enlisted, man, you bottom of the barrel. You a bottom of the barrel. You do what you told, period. Well, the thing about millennials was we question a lot of shit. We like, well, why we gotta do that, Sarge? What's up? Why you want me to do that? It don't make sense to me. I don't do things that don't make, and that's something I used to always say. I don't do things that don't make sense. I need to know why. And something else I've noticed with the generation differences is parenting. Baby boom, Gen X, even millennials, we were taught, do what I say, don't question. Well, when we have kids like me, I tell my kids, hey, my sons, hey, if you want to know why I'm asked to do something, just ask me why. I'll tell you why. Because I've learned when people know why they do something, it won't be a problem for them doing it. But they got to know why. And the other generations, they just like, nah, you do what I say do. You're the parent, I'm the child, I'm up here, you're down here. And yeah, we get it. Children and parents are not equal, but at the same token, you don't want to make people feel like shit. That's not cool at all. I don't believe in that. That's a practice I don't believe in. And that's something, I learned that from the military. You don't let people talk to you any kind of way. Straight up. And you would think, oh, this is the military. You have to. No, that's not how it works. Every day, I have to feel like a man. And if I feel like a man, I can perform my job well. But if I feel like a piece of shit, I feel like I don't have an opinion, I feel like my word don't mean nothing, well, I'm not going to want to be there no more. And that's just what that is. But like I said, millennials, we thought differently in the military. We just did, you know. I mean, cats I roll with, man, we ain't take shit from nobody. We ain't give a damn what rank you were. We like, hey, we combat vets. Fuck that. You don't tell me what to do. I ain't doing that shit if it don't make sense. No, I'm not doing that. No, that don't make sense. I'm not gonna do that. You know, I remember I had an officer, he tried to tell me to do something, and I was like, nah, sir, that ain't gonna work. And I told the E8 what happened. He was like, I'm gonna let you guys handle that. You guys can handle that. I ain't gonna get involved in that. And I respected that because he was like, hey, this petty child shit. Nah, this man, you know, that officer had never been deployed. I was already on deployment number 2. There really wasn't shit he could tell me. Straight up. Dude, I know the landscape. I know what to do. I know what not to do. You're not going to tell me what to do. Period. Just sit over there on the side and chill out. And, you know, like I said before, we wasn't going to just be robots. And that's the problem now is you have a difference in generation. You have generational differences. You have one generation that questions. And then you have one generation that just does things. And they're like, well, the government say do it, so I'm going to do it. Or my job told me to do it this way. I'm going to do it that way. Or this happened or that happened, you know. And, you know, that's not going to fly with most millennials. That ain't happening. So I see that as the difference. That's what the difference I see in generations. That's it. You know, of course, there's so much more, even with financial decision making. You know, because most millennials, on the most part, even though we're conservative on some things, we take risk. You know, baby boomers don't. Gen Xers don't. You know, I always feel like most Gen Xers are just contrarians, just to be contrary. You know, and the thing about being a millennial, like I said before, we don't mind doing certain things, but it has to make sense. This is not making sense to me. 1 + 1 = 2, not 3. No matter how I reconfigure this math problem, 1 + 1 is not going to equal no 3. And I feel the generations, like I said, I think the next generation is Gen Z. With them, they just seem very, I don't know, it's like some of them are risk takers, but some of them are very scary. You know, the behavior I see, they're just very scary kids. You know, I see them, you know, in the workforce. You know, they want to come to work wearing loafers and shit and tennis shoes, and you know they want to do that shit. They want to have they want to have the Starbucks at work, to go hang out in the room, the thing. That's where they get down. I mean, it's cool, you know, it's fine, and they're really socially awkward. I've noticed that. A lot of them are very socially awkward. They have much conversation via the internet or via text message, but face to face, man, you can't get 2 words out of them. That's strange, you know. And in my opinion, a lot of them, they believe in that roommate shit, rooming up and living 4 or 5 people to save money, you know. But boomers, I will say about Gen Xers and millennials, we like, yo, I want my own spot. And of course, there are some areas in the country where roommating is financially beneficial. But we I know me personally, I like my own space. I don't like rooming up with nobody because we all got different habits. People do different shit. You know, people just do everything. People just do things differently. Like with these new generations, man, you got actors and actresses and, you know, celebrities and all that having a social media and you actually can see into their real life. And I'm going to be honest with you. I remember being a kid and having TGI Friday come on with Steve Urkel. And believe it or not, even back then, as a kid, I never had a desire to want to meet these people in real life. I didn't care. I don't want to know your dark secrets. I don't want to know that you have another lifestyle. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know, and I don't care. As long as you're not abusing people, treating people wrong, what you do in your bedroom and your personal life is your business. But I never wanted to see that side of people. And it's like now everything is just out there. I mean, and I hate that I do it, but it's like certain artists that I may like listening to, when I see their Instagram and they act a certain way, I literally unsubscribe from them. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that side of you. You know, and I mean, like I said, that's the, oh my God, it's so much that can be talked about with this. This is so much that can be talked about as far as the generations. But I hope I gave you some type of insight, and maybe you can relate to what I'm saying. You know, you've observed it like I have. But this will conclude the podcast for today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Skiing, riding, sledding, winter biking, winter hiking.
No matter how you Vermont, please Vermont safely.
Cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, snowman building.
This year, that means a 7-day home quarantine with a negative COVID-19 test or a 14-day home quarantine with no symptoms to visit.
Snowball fighting, ice skating, ice climbing, ice fishing, ice cream eating.
So we can all Vermont safely this year.
Dining, craft beering.
Talk to your favorite inn or resort about smart travel suggestions, reservation policies, and the best way to Vermont this winter.
Hot cocoaing, antiquing, shopping, fireside napping.
For full COVID-19 travel guidance, visit VermontVacation.com.
1, 2, 3, 4.
For everyone's safety, Vermont requires a 7-day home quarantine with a negative COVID-19 test or 14 days with no test to visit this winter.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
We're also recommending you take the time to do some extra squats, lunges, wall sits, or high knees.
24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
With reduced lift and lodge capacity, you're going to have a lot more time to spend on the slopes. So take the time to get your legs ready.
38, 39, 40.
Vermont in winter. It's worth the wait.
1, 2, 3.
This winter, plan your trip. Don't trip up your plans. Talk to your favorite inn or resort about smart travel suggestions and reservation policies. For full COVID-19 travel guidance, visit VermontVacation.com.
16, 17.